Hi, it's Candle from Charlie Foxtrot Operations. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. We're going to look at the ShackTac UI mod version 1.2.0 released at the beginning of September. We've set up a vanilla mission with 2 playable units, we're on Stratus and we've got no respawn. There's 3 areas that we tested that didn't seem to work in this new version of the mod. The occlusion, the group markers and the death tracking, and hopefully over the next 10 minutes we'll show you what the problem is. So to start with, we're looking at occlusion. Now focus your eyes on the HUD at the bottom, but also pay attention to what the character in the screen is doing. And you can see right now that both the HUD and what we can see match. We can see that the player, Shock, here is available on our SD HUD, and we can also see him in the game. And as we move back here, however, just as the slope of the hill changes, you'll see suddenly he's disappeared from the HUD despite the fact that we can see him. He's not out of range, he's within range of the HUD, and he should be showing up on it, but the problem is, he isn't. From our testing, it looks like what's happening here is that there's an area that's right at the bottom or near the unit's pelvis, which is actually the singular point right in the center of the unit. And if you can't see that point, then you can't see them. But of course, all the unit's actual identification from a, player perspective would actually be the face or maybe the arm pads on either side, which describe what the unit is and what he's called. You can see also that if we just change our stance, we can get into this situation where in one spot we can see him depending on where we are, and indeed if we crouch in this scenario it would be worse. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at roads. We found some really flaky behaviour in and around the roads, and so here we go out to about the maximum distance. We can see there's no problem. We go prone and it appears to work. So there's no issue on this normal road here, and despite going out as far as we could go, we could not get it to be a problem. But the reason we started testing this will become apparent in a second, because not all roads are the same, despite the fact that they're completely flat and visibility is obviously clearly very good. And so here we go, here is a dirt road. This should work as well, except I can't see him. I can see him at the top, but I can't see him on the HUD. And as I change my stance, I have to get closer and closer and closer before eventually he will then appear again once I get within range. And then as soon as I drop down to prone, he disappears. Now when you actually look at the distance that you have to be from a prone perspective here, it's all kinds of ridiculous. We're talking 4-5 meters at most before the ST HUD actually catches up with visibility in the game. It's really inconsistent as units are going to change their stance and everything else. This is another scenario where we can't actually see the player because of the grass, but the ST HUD shows that he's there, as if everything is okay. It's a bit of a weird scenario. It's not surprising that it doesn't work through grass, but it's nice to know that doesn't work. So next, we're looking at bushes. And we get some really sort of just weird, inconsistent behaviour. The big bush blocks visibility, but this small brown bush doesn't block it at all, despite the fact that it does block the pelvis. And as we change stance here, we'll see that he doesn't disappear, but we would expect him to, because we clearly can't see the unit. The group marker will disappear, but the actual unit won't disappear from ST HUD, except sometimes there's these magic points where he'll start to fade in and out, but we can't get it reliably to block in this case, and yet we go to this nice big set of trees where we can actually see through and see some of the unit at times, and yet this will reliably block him. It's just a weird inconsistency based on presumably the way the Armour 3 traces the individual ray line out from my player to that player's pelvis point. And so here we test to see whether the leaves midway up cause the problem, and we can see that yes, if we can see his head in this scenario, it works. And as we change stances, it does all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And as bushes, they're just really quite inconsistent, and depending on where you are and what the terrain is, it's just going to do different things. These are all examples of vertical occlusion. So now we're looking at a few horizontal occlusion examples. Here is a post, and again this is what allowed us to determine where that point likely is. You can see there's sort of this weird behaviour where we can see the unit around the side of the post, it shows up, but if he's right in the centre he disappears even though he doesn't. Now we move on to a bunker, and we cannot see the player inside of there, but he's reporting that he can actually see us. So Okay, that's quite strange, but not really that surprising how this works. So if we swap over, Shock goes down the bottom and we go up to the top. We can see that quite happily we can see him, and there he is. He appears on our SD HUD, but he cannot see us just in the same way. And as he moves back and forth, as we change stance, we can see we can get it to fade in and out depending on where he is. The weird part about this is that it's not just about the pelvis. If we can see the head here, it works. Here we have a H barrier where we can see him, but he can't see us, despite the fact that our amount of cover is almost identical. And there he is, he disappears. That's just really quite strange, and it's going to be really odd in a mission if you see that. So now we're looking at fences. We also looked at windows and a variety of other transparent things, and the fences and windows work, but here you can see again a post causes a weird little fade out issue and you can't see the guy. So now we're looking at something different. We're looking at the markers that show the unit, and we see when he's standing we can see his name all over his unit, and it appears to work as you expect. He goes down to a crouch and it works, although there's a weird little effect just to the left there where his gun seems to be blocking it. It's not really that it's blocking it from the character. We've tried this from different angles and it appears like the right arm isn't even part of the character from the perspective of this group marker, and that's not too bad. But here, when he goes into prone, it's incredibly difficult to determine what his name is at all. We can see it from the default one, from the difficulty settings, but as you can see, it's kind of like it's just there in the center, but only if you look at him from just the right angles. And we can change his stance all over. We can get him to roll onto his side, and then what you'll see is like, yeah, it procs from that side. Okay, we can see it from this side just a little bit, but you really have to point at the magic point, otherwise it just does not work. Free look doesn't work either, you have to point directly at them. So now we come on to death. What happens to the HUD when people die? So I shoot Shock in the face and we'll see that bang, he immediately disappears from SD HUD. Okay, I shot him, he therefore died, that's fine. Alright, so what happens if he kills himself? So here he is throwing a grenade, standing on it, I can see him on the HUD, it recognises him. He dies, and yet again he will disappear from the HUD. Okay, that's a little bit strange, but alright. It's not quite the behaviour we want. Well, what about if we go onto one of these dirt roads where we can't see each other if we're laying down? What if I shoot him? Well, then he disappears off my HUD. Alright, well, it's nice and consistent. He disappears when he dies, except one of the features is that you're meant to have to go up and identify them. But what if he kills himself? Now he has to get up here in this case, so you'll see him momentarily appear on it, but then he dives back down onto the actual grenade and then disappears off. And now when the grenade goes off and it kills him, we get the death message, but the HUD's still there. How strange. So we have to wait. Okay, is this just taking time? Maybe it's a bit inconsistent or something else? No, it genuinely has stayed. If I couldn't see the unit when it died, when he killed himself, even if I kill him it wouldn't work, but if he kills himself then it does work. How strange. It's certainly an inconsistent behaviour. So how close do I have to go to this guy before we actually determine whether he is dead or not? Okay, well, let's inch forward, inch forward, inch forward. The suggestion would be meters, right? Ideally we would have to actually stick our, fingers on to check for a pulse. Nope, it's about 20 meters away. I think that's strange. So here's the final scenario we set up. There's the two guys and I put an enemy guy behind the house. You'll see it as I look to this house. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Shock to go and kill himself around the corner where he's occluded from me, so the HUD is actually going to block him. It's not the ideal video here. I'm kind of down trying to get occluded and then I move off to the side because I need to make sure that he is actually going to go behind there and it's all working. But here you go, you see him go behind the house. We hear the fire, we get the death message, and once again the ST HUD is showing that he's alive. So it works if he kills himself or if the enemy kills him, but not if I kill him, and not if at any point the ST HUD determines that he's not occluded from me. So in conclusion, what does this actually mean for the new ST HUD? Well, I think what you're going to find is that the occlusion behaviour is just kind of flaky in gameplay. You're going to see players sort of disappear and reappear, and it's not going to be entirely clear why that's actually happening. It's going to be partly due to the vertical occlusion and partly due to horizontal occlusion. In addition to that, if you're using the ST HUD group markers, you're really going to have to get quite close to be able to read the name, and you're also going to find that there's some really inconsistent behaviour, especially when they go prone. The new death detection is going to be quite weird whether it does and does not work, because it very much depends on whether they're occluded. But based on the actual occlusion results from before, you're probably going to find that people are occluded far more often than you might expect, even though you can actually see them, and so they're quite likely to stay on the ST HUD even when they're dead, except for the fact that there's a good chance that the guys in your unit are probably going to die within 20 meters of you, so they'll probably disappear anyway. So for now, what we're doing is we're turning off the occlusion, we're turning off the death detection, and we're using the ace group markers, because we don't consider any of these three features to be of high enough quality to make it into our mod set. I mean, we obviously do a lot of mod testing here at Charlie Foxtrot. It takes us a large amount of time, and we don't normally review mods in this way, but we normally just report the bugs directly to the authors. We've already done this in this case, but Dyslexy wasn't showing a great deal of interest in actually fixing them. He wasn't convinced there were really problems and asked us to produce a video. So here it is. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this short look into the ShackTac UI mod version 1.2. We could obviously do more of these. We do a lot of mod testing. We don't typically do these things, so if you enjoyed this video, you found it useful, stick a comment below and let us know.